Okay. Welcome back. Welcome back to Combat Boots to Red Bottoms training. Um, the topic is success mindset for entrepreneurs. How to cultivate an entrepreneur mindset that inspires, motivates, and leads you to success. So thank you for joining us again for module 2, which we'll be getting to. I am your facilitator, Letitia Holmes, and I am the founder of Combat Booster Red Bottom. So you're kind of stuck with me for the next couple of modules. I will try and make it as interesting as possible. However, if you would like to get in our small group or sign up for our precision program, which actually includes this as one of the training, and get in on those small discussions and get your handouts and everything, please just send us a message at Combat Boots to Red Bottoms. You can go to the website or go to our Facebook page, or if you're in the private community, if you're one of the ladies in the private community, you can also message Combat Boots to Red Bottoms from there, or myself, to find out more information on how you can get in on a precision guided program. All right, so let's get to it. We are talking about reaching for success, growth versus fixed mindset. And this is module 1 that we will be covering today. We're going to be talking about the growth versus the fixed mindset. Now, I want you to have an open mind as we go through these. I have to say this up front, this is not so we can be judgmental. This is for information purposes to apply to ourselves and kind of be aware. So we're going to get into the details of what a growth mindset looks like and what a fixed mindset looks like. And then you will have the opportunity to kind of figure out which one is, pertains to you. So let's get to it. All right. So research about mindset has identified 2 types, and I've already introduced those, which is the growth and fixed mindset. That is 2 types of mindset. And the research has found that the favorable mindset to actually cultivate is your growth mindset. So a fixed mindset means that you believe that your character, your intelligence, your abilities are actually stagnant. Now, what that means is that they are a fixed part of who you are, and it can never be changed. So you can never, all these attributes can never be changed. They're just a part of you, and that's it. Have you ever heard someone say, well, that's just how I am? So a lot of times you can think that, oh, that person might have a fixed mindset. Have you ever heard yourself say that? So think about, have you said, oh, it's just how I am? All right. The key characteristics of a fixed mindset is the need that some people feel to constantly prove themselves. Since you only have like this set amount of intelligence or this set amount of personality or morality, these characteristics, you only have a set amount of it, is fixed, and that's just how you are. You need to constantly prove yourself. So people with a fixed mindset often get really consumed in proving themselves in, class or at work or in relationship and even in business. So this constant proving of yourself to others come from the need to confirm your existing intelligence, like your existing abilities. This arises out of concern over whether you look smart or stupid, okay? Whether you will be accepted or rejected, whether you succeed or fail. This overwhelming need to constantly prove yourself is due to, those options that you're fixing yourself in. Do I look smart? Do I look stupid? Which I really hate the word stupid, but it's kind of really, if you really think about it, stupidity can't be cured. So it's fixed. So a lot of times you're like, okay, well, do I look smart or do I look stupid? Well, what's the other option? I don't like using the word stupid because it's like a death sentence. That's if it can't be cured. But if you have some ignorance, that can be cured. You don't know something, you can always learn it. So I really hate using the word stupid, but if you think about it, people with a fixed mindset will often, use that. They're not really conscious of what that really means. And then when you're subjecting it to yourself to say, hey, am I smart or stupid? It can be very overwhelming. So a person with a fixed mindset, kind of looks at the world as black and white. You're either smart or stupid, you're either accepted or rejected, you either succeed or fail. In this case, the individual with a fixed mindset overly, they're overly concerned with the static labels, that they have, um, come to identify with themselves, such as intelligent, gifted, talented, and so on. Okay. So, um, it can be pretty daunting and overwhelming for a person that is continuously trying to prove themselves. Now, growth mindset, on the other hand, is an individual who sees their character, their intelligence, and their abilities as always developing and evolving, right? Unlike the fixed mindset, a growth mindset doesn't compel you to constantly prove yourself because you know that you can change and grow with experience and practice, right? Remember the example I gave you during the introduction of this was um, a person who says, hey, they're passing up on a speaking opportunity due to the fact that that speaking opportunity, it makes them nervous. They're like, okay, well, I'm not a public speaker, and I really bombed in command and staff, or the last class I gave, I wasn't really good. So they're like, I can't do that. And so they pass up the opportunity. Well, remember at the end of that, I told you guys that, public speaking is a skill that you can actually improve on with practice, right? So your qualities aren't fixed with a growth mindset. It doesn't matter if others see you, see that you lack perfect qualities. I'm not saying it doesn't bother you or it's not something that you need to be aware of, but it doesn't matter if others, because that all of us are always growing and learning. We're always in a process of learning, or if not, we should be. We should always be open to learning different things. So a key element in success in any field is the willingness and the desire to learn new things and grow. And also the acceptance of change. One thing that is for sure is that change is going to occur. So this is why a growth mindset is strongly associated with success. So how is it that some people have fixed mindset? So when you have a fixed mindset, you can see that in a person who possibly have mastered something quickly, okay, and then they plateau. They plateau and fail to improve any further. And the person will either succeed with a task at first, or try, or give up in disappointment. So their inner voice has already told them that they're either good. Remember that inner voice I was telling you about earlier? They're telling them, that voice is saying, that they're good at what they're good at or not good at that particular task that they're trying to accomplish, their goal they're trying to accomplish. So with a growth mindset, you can see that in a person who learns, that possibly learns slowly and gradually, and they're accepting new challenges and they're solving problems along the way. That's a good sign that a person has a growth mindset. These different mindsets can be recognized early in childhood. So when given a challenging, if you give a child a challenging puzzle to solve, some children will try, fail, and they'll be like, very disinterested. They give up on it. They're like, oh, okay, let me go do something else, right? But other children, they will try, and even though they don't experience immediate success, they become engaged. They see it as a problem to solve. They spend time with it. So we often call kids like this. We'll say things like, that kid, they just love a good challenge. So not only do do you see this in children, you can actually a mindset, this these mindsets, whether it's um fixed or growth mindset, they're also revealed, you know, later in life. So think back to someone that you knew in high school, right? Who had everything going for them, going well for them, and then they were intelligent, talented, personable, and seemed to have everything in order. But then in recent years, you reconnect with them, whether it's, personally on social media or, high school reunion, or you run into them in a coffee shop or something of that nature, and you're shocked to learn that, their life took off early and then it seemed to kind of fizzle out or stagnant. Most likely this person was probably had a fixed mindset and could not continue growth and evolving in the way that you expected. Keywords here, we have to keep in mind that your expectations, it might be just your expectations. I'm not saying go out here and judge a person, because there's other factors that could be at play. You never know what someone has happened in someone's life or what choices they have made. Some people who started out really successful by your expectations in the limelight, they're always in a public forum. Maybe that was so overwhelming to them, and they just they had peace doing something that was a little less glamorous. So I'm not saying that this is, we go out there and judge people based on what our expectations were. This is not what this class is for. So just keep that in mind, just keep that in perspective. Um, about when we're talking about growth and fixed mindset. On the other hand, if you connect with someone who has a growth mindset, they might have gone on to achieve more than what you expected. Again, your expectations. And this person may not have seemed like the type who was bound for great things, but over time, they might have started a business, achieved some success elsewhere, right? Okay, so just keep in mind, this is not for us to be judgmental. This is for us to kind of evaluate ourselves. And don't just go out there and say, you got a fixed mindset. So I don't want you to go out there pointing fingers or start judging people. Okay, so you should see something on the screen, like a little chart, and it has two columns. One is labeled fixed and one is labeled growth. And this is a summary of the key characteristics of fixed mindset versus growth mindset. And you can see on here, fixed mindset, we talked about this, intelligence, character, and abilities are static. We already talked about that. As far as on a growth side, these can be cultivated, all right? Um, skip down to the a hunger for approval. Remember we talked about that, and desire to maintain their status as intelligent, to have good character and have good abilities. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be a good person, right? But you also need to understand that you want to have a passion and you want to learn, be open to learning and evolving, right? You don't have to be stuck where you are. You don't have to be on a hamster wheel of life. Yeah, fixed mindset usually avoid challenges. Growth embraces challenges. Avoids situations where they might fail. Failure diminishes their sense of worth. The idea that they are smart or capable. And then with growth, this mindset learns from failure. Failure is an opportunity to stretch your abilities, but you have to learn from it. So, and then there's other ones like ignore criticism and negative feedback. That's what fixed mindset is. But then, growth people look at the feedback and they say, oh, okay, I can learn from that. Constructive criticism. I think, just straight criticism is hard for anyone to receive. But we have to train our mind to kind of look at it and kind of get some feedback from it. All right. And fixed mindset finally sees the success of others as a threat, and growth learns from the success of others. So kind of keep this in mind. Look at this and see how it applies to yourself in any situations that you have found yourself in, and see, which mindset do you display based on the response to that. If you are in if you have your handbooks, this should be in your handbook or your handout. Okay, so far we've discussed fixed and growth mindset as though they were immutable personality characteristics, but this is not the case. I don't want you to think that's the case. Mindset is situational. Always remember that mindset is situational. You may use one of the other mindsets in certain situations, as well as different times of your life. For example, when you're facing a new situation where you are unsure of yourself and you're not confident, you're more likely to adopt a fixed mindset. You may adopt more of a growth mindset in activities where, you're more engaged or experienced. In any case, defaulting to a fixed mindset, whether situational or for a large portion of your life, can limit your success, health, and your happiness in the long term. So just keep that in mind. Um, Ask yourself, which mindset do you have? Okay. Ask yourself, which mindset do you have? In order to understand whether lie on the side of growth or fixed mindset, please complete the assessment that I have provided you. All the ones that are enrolled in this in the training, um, in which you're gonna you'll rate yourself on a variety of statements. Now, this assessment is going to be based on the work of Carol Dweck. Remember, we talked about how that was her focus. This was, she brought mindset to the forefront. And the quiz was originally written for an educational setting. So while it's not scientifically validated, it offers a good benchmark of where you stand in terms of fixed or growth mindset. Once you've completed the questionnaire, I want you to tally up your total scores and review your results based on the description at the end of your worksheet that I have given you. You know, um, and once you do that, okay, once you do that, you're going to determine how to nurture a growth mindset in a three-step process, right? Once you have, where you stand on the spectrum, we're going to talk about these steps. So take the opportunity to do that, and we're going to move on. We'll talk about that in small group or one-on-one. Okay, the choice is going to be yours. And so once you know from that assessment what side of the spectrum that you actually fall on, I'm giving you some steps. Here are some steps that you're going to take to move, that's going to move you more toward the growth oriented mindset. Okay. So we're not going to leave you hanging if you have, you're steering over to the fixed mindset a little bit more. We're going to give you like a simple process to actually get you squared away to move you over on the growth oriented side. All right. Step one. Step one is awareness. Hear your fixed mindset voice. Okay. Fixed mindset voice. You have to be aware. So in the introduction, I mentioned to you the inner critic. Remember, it was the inner critic. So you most likely know the voice. Okay. Even though you may have never had to identify it as the inner critic, the first step is to identify the voice. You remember I told you that's your first step. And identify the times when you hear it. These are situations where you brought back, you're kind of brought back to your fixed rather than your growth mindset. You want to identify that time. And to do this, you simply need to practice awareness. Start by identifying the voice when you hear it. Okay. Then you're going to try to remember what event preceded those negative thoughts. It's a bit like trying to identify what caused a stomach ache. It's the same concept, except one is physical. You have to go back and try to remember what you ate just before you got a stomach ache when you're trying to determine, how you got a stomach ache. Now, if you're not sure you've identified your inner critic yet, try looking for cues. For example, look for times when you find that you doubted yourself the most. Okay, when you're doubting yourself, saying something like, "Can I really do this?" If you've asked yourself that, then kind of hone in on what was I doing at that time? Why did I ask my question? What situation was I in? Or be aware of when you're focusing on failure rather than success. An example of this is, where were you worried about what would happen if you failed at something? Like, what's going to happen if I fail this PT test? Something of that nature. Okay, so if you were worried about failing at something, what was that task? When, what was it like? Look at that situation, right? A good place to look for your fixed mindset voice is anytime that you're trying something new or challenging, because remember, a lot of times we default back to our fixed mindset. Remember, I said that it's situational. So these are the most common situations where this negative voice is going to arise, right? Step two. In step two, you want to reframe, right? Step two, you want to reframe. So once you have recognized the voice, you can learn to control it. But you have to identify it first. You have to recognize it first. So the way that you interpret challenges or obstacles or criticism, that you face is going to be up to you. But this is the most challenging step for most people. This step right here, step two. It's difficult to refrain your voice when you have a well-grooved pattern. It's very difficult. The way to think about reframing is to imagine giving advice to a friend. Naturally, when you give advice to a friend, you would never use a harsh critical voice when you're trying to help a friend kind of work out things and get them back on track, right? Or sort things out. If you would never do this with a friend, why would you ever do this with yourself? Be kind to yourself. A lot of times we beat ourselves up way more than what other people would do. Have you ever heard that? Well, I'm my biggest critic, all right? So kind of be a little bit more gentle with yourself, firm but gentle, right? We're generally harsher on ourselves than with anybody else. So instead of talking to yourself, imagine, imagine that you're giving advice to a really, really good friend. All right. So you want to take each statement that your inner voice gives you, and I want you to imagine as if it was your friend or your partner, your significant other, or your family member who was saying it to themselves. How do you do this? Just imagine that. Imagine them saying these harsh things to themselves. Now I want you to imagine that you're giving them advice, and I want you to reframe those negative statements that was made and just reframe them in a different way. All right. Okay. Got to reframe. Step one was aware. You got to hear that voice. You got to identify that voice. You got to listen to what that voice is telling you. And then number two, you are going to reframe what that voice is saying as if you were a good friend to yourself, because you have to be a good friend to yourself. Let's face it. Step three, it brings us to the final step. You got to take action, of course. Remember, this is an action, but everything we do in Combat Boots to Red Bottoms is action based. So you will learn that. So you want to take on the growth mindset. That's your action. Take on the growth mindset. After reframing comes action. What challenges have you been avoiding? Ask yourself that. What challenges can you take on in order to foster and nurture a good mindset? What are those challenges that you're avoiding? Choose a challenge and try it again. But this time, I want you to turn your fixed mindset around. Find a work related or personal task that you've either been shying away from, procrastinating, don't want to do, away, doing, or, that you feel that you're going to fail at. For example, perhaps you always put work first and your eating habits are not the best. So, how can you challenge yourself to create better eating habits? Maybe there's a skill that you've been wanting to learn, such as maybe a cooking, but the idea of trying again gives you a sense of anxiety. It's natural. There might be an important client when it comes to business that you've been meaning to contact, but you've been shying away from it. Go ahead and do that. I want you to put this in action. Start with one challenge, and you can then apply it to the next challenge once you have succeeded in with that challenge first. Don't try and apply it to everything at once. Take a challenge, apply it to it, evaluate it, everything. So remember, you have to take action. Step 3 is taking action. All right. So we got through that. Do I have any questions? If you have any questions and you're enrolled in this program through the Precision uh, program or one of our Combat Boots to Red Bottoms, 12-month uh, programs, then, send us your questions, or we can answer those during your one-on-one or during your group setting. All right. So if you have any questions, please, please do not hesitate to let me know. All right. Again, this is action based. So these are your action steps. If you're enrolled, you have your handouts and you will see these. I want you to take some steps. I want you to complete the growth and fixed mindset questionnaire that I mentioned earlier in class, during this training. And if you haven't already, I want you to, it's a separate worksheet. If you do not have it, please let me know. Next, I want you to review your scoring and I want you to summarize your results in your action guide that you have. I want you to ask, do you have more fixed or growth mindset? Were you surprised by the results? Were there particular areas where you had more of a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset? And then I want you to go back to the intro module that we did where you wrote down all of your positive and negative thoughts about your idea life. And I want you to review those negative responses. Which ones of those were fixed mindset? You're going to likely notice that your fixed mindset will be predominant in certain areas, where in others you might have a more growth oriented. So for example, you might have growth mindset for a goal to grow your business, yet for having a healthier lifestyle, you might have a more fixed mindset. So I want you to pay attention to that. Now I want you to practice. Now I want you to practice reframing. I want you to take those same negative thoughts and reframe them as growth mindset statements. And remember the tip. Imagine you're giving yourself um, a pep talk like your friend. Well, I wouldn't say a pep talk, okay? So I'm not going to say a pep talk. Just remember to imagine giving a friend, a good friend, uh, not a friend of me, but a good friend, advice to help you with your reframing statements. Remember that tip when you are reframing. From the reframing statement is there one area of your life, I want you to take for step 4. I forgot to go in the steps, I'm sorry. But when you reframe your statements, I want you to look at your reframing statements and look at, is there one area of your life that you could start working on? For example, if you are trying to be healthier, is there a challenge you could take on to help move your life in that direction. Perhaps you've always wanted to try running. If your goal is to increase your income by 20%, what is the one piece that you can take on? You know, write down one challenge that you can start working on and get to it, because remember, anything we do in Combat Boots to Red Bottoms is action based, and that's why we have these action steps. So if you're enrolled in this program, in the precision program or one of the Combat Boots to Red Bottoms programs, then we will talk about this one-on-one or during your group setting. All right. So all right, you guys have gotten through module 1. I know it's a lot of information, but remember, the information that I have provided for you is not for us to be judgmental of others, and not necessarily judgmental for ourselves. It's to bring awareness. And remember, it is situational. That is so key. It is situational. Having a growth and success mindset is situational. We hear a lot of people say, oh, you have to have a money mindset or a growth mindset, or you can't have a fixed mindset. Remember, if someone is saying, putting you in this box, we're not trying to put you in this box, then they have a fixed mindset. I don't want you to have a fixed mindset about others or yourself. There's always room for improvement. There's always growth that's available. So I want you to take this and look at inward and say, okay, where have I been the toughest? How can I reframe that? And how can I take action to change that for the better? So I can have more success in my entrepreneur life as well as my regular life, right? So with that being said, I am going to conclude, because I think we have been on this for probably almost an hour. So don't forget to do your homework, take those action steps. And if you want any other information on enrolling in one of Combat Boots to Red Bottoms programs, please let us know. And I will see you guys next time when we go through module 2.